Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we are back again with another PWCC Weekly Review where I go through the top 100 items for the soccer card auctions this week on the PWCC platform. It's really that simple. I'll just go ahead and get into it. If you do like these videos, make sure to leave a like. Also, any comments on what you saw in the auction or anything, maybe I might not know that I need help on, would love to hear it down below in a comment. It helps me a lot and helps the channel grow and continue to do this type of stuff. And as we do, we'll start from the bottom and work our way up. So we have a 1988 Euroflash Maradona PSA 8, pop 1 of 2 in the grade, but not terribly hard to find. PSA 8 is obviously a decent grade, and it gets a decent price at $115 for that. I do like the look of it. Next to it, we have a Florian Albert from the San Giorgio set. I think we saw this exact one run before, so I'll just gloss over it. This is a Zamora 1920s. It's an authentic evidence of trimming that goes for $120. This mascot that this company has is sort of like a Humpty Dumpty figure, and it terrifies me to no end. So yeah, always just some nightmare fuel whenever I look at those types of cards, but we'll keep going. Obviously, a decent card if it's doing 120 for a trim, for sure. Also pretty old, so that'll help. 2022 Pele, I looked at the back of this earlier, and it was just not associated with anything, so it makes sense why it does the price it did. Equivalently, next to it, we have a Kylian Mbappe base, which is sort of the same thing. In a sense, a Lionel Messi orange prism from Select here and Equalizers. Next row, we have a 2006 Ronaldo. Typically, the good players in this set, the foils and PSA 10, I always imagine to be around the 150 range, so this fits into that mold. This Frank Lampard actually pretty low. I did look this up because I was interested, and yeah, 130 compared to the last one of 260 a couple months ago, and there hasn't been any sales recently, so it's not like, there's a glut of supply coming, and that's why people can't keep up. I mean, there was sort of a decent bit of supply before that, and even, back last year, there was a ton of them hitting the market, and now there's none, and prices are still going down, which is not what you want to see. On the final day, this was one I was actually thinking about picking up, but realistically it doesn't fit into what I want to do or anything like that, so I didn't go after it. But it was just that low that on the final day I'm like, man, makes you wonder. But at the same time, if there's not that type of demand, then that also sort of leads to where it is at the moment. Lionel Messi World Cup Prism base 2014 goes for $138. I think we'll see another one higher in a bit, but yeah, not a great price, at least compared to what I see on eBay sometimes. For as much shtick as people like to give PWCC, I do think it is really good for comps, though, because most of the stuff, I believe, gets paid for. eBay, there is much more question of that, especially on certain sales rather than others. We have a 1969 Calciatore pack. This one, I wasn't too sure in terms of why it's worth what it's worth. Obviously, it's a sealed pack from a long time ago, but when I look at the set, I don't see anything in it that would, speak out to me in terms of why it would be worth a lot. But I do see these sell a good bit, and if anyone has any info, would love to know. I do like the pack. I like the colors of it, and, I like old sealed packs in general because I think they have, inherent value, but at the same time, I don't know what this one's is, so I'm interested. Ricardo Pepi Gold, I did look this up just because, I don't get to see tons of USMNT on here, so when I can, honestly, it looked like a really good price. If I was into, buying all the USMNT strikers and their gold stuff, I would. Personally, I like one of them. I like Josh Sargent, but that's sort of, one people don't care about now. Now it's Pepi and Balogun and all that, and it'll be other people in the future. But basically at these prices, I mean, it's not that bad comparable to the Bowman base, which has been going from anywhere between 30 and 75, it looks. A gold PSA 9 for 150, or a blue, not too bad. I'd imagine there's not a lot of people scrubbing PWCC every week for USMNT stuff, so that's probably a factor as well. Personally, I'd rather get like a Clinton Dempsey or Tim Howard Flawless for near this price, so that's what I've been focusing on lately. But if I was in the rookie prospecting for USMNT, I don't think this would be a bad play at all. And I really like the Bowman set, despite, I guess, not the great colors that it gives you. It's not a chrome texture, but to me, I still do like the Bowman set. 1977 Sarah Vaughan Socrates here. This picture, and just him without facial hair really scares me. But one of two, just two higher, goes for $144. This was actually $40 more than the last time this same exact one sold from a few months back. I closed that and didn't want to go through it because it was only one sale, so I just remembered it. But did all right, at least comparably. Row above that, nothing too crazy in the first two. Then we have Jimmy Greaves Cadet Suites. I don't know if this is, I don't know if there's a rare Jimmy Greaves from this set. I'm guessing there isn't. But for some reason, this does a lot more than the last one. The last one was like 75. I know notably with the Charltons on here, you have to look for an inverted back. I don't believe, or I don't know if that's the case for Jimmy Greaves. He might have uninverted backs. If so, those are 1959. But I don't know if this title 28mm means anything as far as I'm aware. I'm just guessing that that's an old PSA label that they've since taken off because I couldn't see anything in the pop report. But not a bad price. The reason I am wondering basically in terms of if this is some rare variant is because PWCC says pop 1 of 10, none higher. When I go and look for, Cadet Suites Greaves, it's pop like 50, 10 higher. And so either one, this is, some variant that I am unaware of, or two, this is PWCC not updating their descriptions and having them be wildly outdated and maybe sort of implying something that isn't actually there. But I'm interested. If you guys know, let me know. Next show, we have a women's card. Not my bag, so I'm not going to go there. 2017 Topps Chrome Modric Green. I did look this up, and they have been doing very, very well. Oh, I did bring up the Socrates. I also brought up the Jimmy Greaves, but I'll close that. So looking at the green Modric here, PSA 9 does 160. Last one did 130. And 10s, even in October 2022, May 2023, those were doing 200. Now a 9 is doing near 200. So 10s have done very, very well. It's also implied 9s would have done very, very well. So if you have Topps Chrome, you're probably feeling pretty good right now. Personally, whenever stuff like this happens, I'm selling some Topps Chrome. Like I have a few nice ones that are already at auction, and it's not something where I want to get out of the set forever, but it's, the ancillary guys, I'm not as sure. Now, Modric is, by no means some ancillary, toss out. It doesn't really matter. He's one of the greats, so I do think that he matters in that set. And maybe that's what people are more so picking up on with him in particular. But from my experience of the market and just how I'm seeing people talk about sets, it does feel like Topps Chrome 2017 right now is sort of having a moment, despite, the general negativity that has been out there in the past, and maybe is there now. The 2003 Upper Deck PSA 7 Cristiano Ronaldo feels like a decent price. I mean, 160, obviously these were very, very high at one point, like many things, whatever. But when we talk about this card in particular, I think it has trouble getting back to where it was someday. Now, that's always something you have to consider is, can a card get back to maybe what you saw one day? And not in the greedy sense of, oh, it has to do it in a few years. It's got to be this, dip and then massive roar back up. No, it's just, could you see this card getting back to hobby relevancy? Can you see people caring? Can you see why it gets there? And for, say a PSA 7 Upper Deck, I really can't, because there's so much stuff with Ronaldo second and third year. And even within the Upper Deck and SP sets, you have numbered, high and low, you have inserts. I mean, there's tons of different things that you can chase after. That why would someone chase after this? I really don't know. So to me, that felt like a good sale. I didn't even really want to look at the comps because maybe the comps say it isn't, but to me it feels good, right? Next we have a 1973 Cruyff and a PSA 4. Love the panel look of that with all the different boxes, going for 156. Pop one a 3.5 higher, allegedly. Then we have a 1970 Jalma Santos. This is sort of one of the ode to prior World Cup with 1958 in the bottom left. 7.5 goes for 156. I'm interested in this type of stuff. Like, how much of a discount should you put on a 1970s sticker of a legend that wasn't playing at the time? And then how much of a premium should they get if they're actually really, really good? Like, I'm interested in how that plays out because I think that's a very interesting question going forward for maybe other sets where the same thing exists. Say a 2014 Prism with like a World Cup Stars Pele, sort of the same thing, to a lesser degree, of course. And then this was fun, 160 for an out of 15 black PSA 10 Messi. Feels like a decent deal. Obviously, people don't like match attacks, but from what I hear the Soccer Cards United people talk about on their podcasts, they say that, basically match attacks is the thing in terms of how, the UK sees the hobby and how they perceive it. So maybe at some point in the future, that's a really, really cool card that someone just got for a very reasonable price. I mean, that's a numbered out of 15 black pseudo color match in a PSA 10, which means the PSA 9 in theory could be like $50, which isn't anything crazy. This 2014 Prism does a good bit more than the last one. Next to we have a George Best, and then we have a Lionel Messi lifting the trophy Panini Instant. This left me with an interesting question of which one would I rather have between the Panini Instant and the 2014 World Cup Prism. I'd love to know what other people think. honestly, as much as I hate the left card and I think, print on demand cards are bad, that's one where I think print on demand makes sense and I kind of like it. Would I rather have the base or this? I mean, honestly, if I had the base, I don't even feel like, every time I look at it, I just feel ashamed because so many people in the community at this point have posted colors upon colors upon colors upon colors, and even silvers, people don't even care about. So, like, me owning a base of this card, I can't look at it and be like, oh yeah. But I can look at the other one and be like, yes, that's a great moment. So, interestingly enough for me, I actually would rather have the left card, which is terrible. Or is it? I don't, maybe it makes a lot of sense. 1995-96 Panini Calciatore Francesco Totti in a 9 goes for 170. Reasonably so. Next to him is, the star that is Ansu Fati. This card, obviously, very, very expensive at one point, now down quite a bit. So, that's the way the cookie crumbles if your career goes the way that Ansu Fati's has. Next to that, 2022, Jonathan David out of 10. This is the Scorers Club Gold. PSA 9, I mean, to me, feels like a fun buy. I know there's a lot of Canadian collectors, so, that seems like one that would work for them. Obviously, the rookie card logo on what I think is like 4th year Jonathan David is pretty crazy, but, that's the state of the land at this point. 2006 World Cup, Cristiano Ronaldo in a 9 going for 186. This did also leave me wondering, would I rather have this or the R9 in a PSA 10 and like an extra $50? And I think that's an interesting question that everyone could sort of, think about internally and decide on. To me, I mean, I'd rather have CR7. First World Cup feels pretty important to me. But the R9 is a pretty cool card in a 10 paired up with the other greats in that set would also look really good. But I think in that set, you have to pair it with Ronaldo and Messi. You can't have the other ones without them. So, at least, in my opinion. Roberto Baggio in a 3 from the Calcio Flash goes for 186 next to a Pele Sticker Verlag from 1966. We'll see a much higher grade of that later. This is a 3 that goes for 180, so keep that in mind. Then in this row, we have, sort of the bridge between pre-modern and vintage with, here we have a Rivellino, we have a Cannavaro, and a Carlos Valderrama. Rivellino, this I thought was, again, sort of a notable comparison if you want to compare that with the Jaume Santos we just saw. Obviously, Santos being a more important player in the grand scheme of things, but also not being active, obviously plays a role. So a lower grade does a higher price here. Fabio Cannavaro, 94, rookie, but not quite true. And then an 88 Carlos Valderrama goes for 204. Above that, a few odds and ends here. Benjamin Sesko drawing a number 7 as his auto. Very impressive. Maybe jersey match auto. Unsure on that. Likely not, given where he plays. But nonetheless, we'll keep it moving. Dixie Dean, 1932, and a 9 goes for 204. And then we have a Gianluigi Buffon and a 10 go for 210. If Pop 101, if that is true, that's moderately impressive, I would say. And if you're a Buffon collector, I could see that happening. But fun to see a 210 price on that. This PSA 9 Moeller does 222 for the gold. And man, that makes me think about, there was a PSA 2 on here a few months back that everyone sort of caught on to. Everyone saw the PSA 2 and everyone had the same idea of like, I gotta crack that PSA 2 and find out what it actually is, because there's no way, right? And I think people paid like $150 for that, or I mean, it was a lot, right? Because I had the same inclination and I saw it and I was like, there's no way I'm going near it. And that makes sense now, because I mean, a 9 going for 222 and the 2 went for over 100. Like, what's your upside, And so that's interesting. Nonetheless, decent price. Again, I mean, comparably with the Modric, I think that's sort of an interesting debate is, Moeller, Modric, Golds. Like, who would you rather have personally? I'd rather have Thomas Muller, but I know a lot of the soccer hobby doesn't see the Bundesliga in a bright light. So 85 Adis Maradona. Here we have the prismatic sort of gold vinyl shine that it has. Doesn't do well on pictures though, as you can see. Can't really tell what's going on. But 222 for a pop 1 of 14, 2 higher. Not an easy grade, and about as high as you're gonna get for the most part. Jeff Hurst, rookie, 222 for a PSA 5. We've seen a few of those go recently. Before that, I hadn't really seen many, so there's sort of a surge, I guess. 2014, Harry Kane, Topps Premier Club, going for 228. I did look at comps on this, and basically, near the same price as the last auction, which was near a year ago, and fixed price did do 300. So right in line. Feels like a decent sale. I mean, in terms of if you can go for near the last auction and, you know, close to the last fixed price on a random PWCC weekly for someone like Harry Kane and a rookie that isn't even, you know, highly coveted, feels pretty decent. 2004 Zidane Mega Cracks, the green quote-unquote PMG. Again, you know, that's not really PMG like, it doesn't look that good, but it is one color, and so it gets the name, I guess. But 228 for that one. Pop 1 at 6, just one higher, so allegedly hard to get in a 10. Some are easier though. I've seen other ones with, you know, plenty higher in terms of pop. The weekly Franz Beckenbauer auto shows up at 240. We then have a women's auto out of 10 going for 250. A purple Christian Pulisic. So I did look this up just because I was interested. Again, I don't get to look up much USMNT, so when I can. Not a great look on this one in terms of where it's trending. I guess last auction actually did you know, 250 in October of last year, so relatively you know, basically right on the dot in terms of that. But before, it did sell for $850 in April of last year, so down a lot from there. That was sort of, I would say, the high of USMNT was early in the year of 2022, and then it sort of dipped come World Cup time and post World Cup time, and now it's sort of in the same spot it was prior. So obviously a little bit of a dip, but I think that's, you know, sort of akin to everything else in the market. The USMNT didn't really drop before, you know, the early part of last year, so I think it makes sense. In terms of the card itself, honestly, like, Treble is one of those enigmas for me because of sort of its place in the hobby. Obviously, Andre made a video about it, and that sort of set off the hobby for the set. Not to say that the set's only collectible because Andre talked about it, but that was sort of the, you know, the spark that lit the whole thing on fire. And so now it's sort of this game of, well, where do you think it ends up? How do you want to go about it? Personally, I own a couple, but yeah, for something like this Christian Pulisic, I'm not going to chase. If one day it makes its way to me, sure, but there's tons of rookies for Pulisic I'd rather have for 250, so that's the way I go. 1962 Idemar Pele here. Pretty nice looking one, but we do see this a lot. So 250 for a 2. Decent looking back. I already took a peek at it a little bit ago. Here we have the 1959 Pele Heinerle in a 1 with a MK designation. Pretty rough corners. You know, back's a little destroyed on the tops, but nothing too terrible. You can still read, and obviously lots of creases. It does near 300, which doesn't feel bad. Last week, if you guys remember, I bought a PSA 3 for near 600, so for me, that makes me feel good about my price point. Not that that's the only goal, but, you know, it's reassuring. 2022 Gianluigi Buffon. This is a red, I believe, out of 10 auto. Yeah, going for 300. Made a video about this, but just always very weary about, you know, especially post-playing career sticker autos, even if they're numbered. I just don't see how they maintain relevancy. 10 years from now, who's going to say, you know, I need a 2022 Gianluigi Topps Inception, and like 10 years from now, who's going to say, I need a 2022 Topps Inception UEFA Club Competition short print autographs red Gianluigi Buffon, or else my collection's ruined. Like, I don't know who's saying that, right? So it's very hard for me. Obviously, it has a place, but I just wonder long-term, you know, how many people truly care. Autos in and of themselves are pretty cool, I will give it that, but like the numbering and the sets and all that, it's so niche. Trezeguet here, this is a PSA 10. It says rookie, and I'll believe it. And not that you always should on PWCC, of course, but 312 there. I mean, the price point sort of makes me believe it. 1981 Votball Frank Rijkaard PSA 7 goes for 312. We've seen quite a few of his, well, I guess this is an earlier one, but we've seen quite a few of his stickers going in general, at least relatively. You don't expect to see much. 2004 Lionel Messi. This is a Campio and a 6. I did look this up, and it actually was a pretty low sale, at least relatively. Last one went for 405, then 450, 415, 415, 336. So, you know, lowest since 336 in July, which is, yeah, I guess about a month ago. Before that, there were some high points and relatively, you know, nothing crazy. But I will say, I think the 6s, especially like 5s and 6s, I think they've overcooked a bit, just because it's an entry point, accessible Messi rookie, because they're cheap enough, you know, a couple $100, few $100, people can justify that and they can go out and get it. But in reality, I think, you know, there's a lot of 8s, and we'll see some 8s here in a bit that are, you know, near the $500-$600 range. And I think that's probably what's holding these back is, you know, the 6s and 7s obviously can't outpace the 8s, and the 8s aren't going from that $500, $600, $700 range to the $1,000, $2,000 range. They're not taking that leap. So if they don't take that leap, the 6s and the 5s, they really can't take the leap they want to take. So I think that's sort of what's clogging it. And I mean, in general, when you have a lot of rookies like Messi does, that's going to, be a factor, right? 1979. Then we have a 1979 Maradona. This is a super football from the Industria Argentina set, a set with tons of different pictures of Maradona, and this is a pretty cool one, at least to me, because it has the Estampas picture from 1978, but this is sort of blown up, really good colors, looks really nice, and so, 364 pop, 1 of 3, just one higher. Doesn't seem terrible to me. Above that, we have a couple modern items, a Jude Bellingham auto, a Kylian Mbappe color wheel. We have a SGC 7 Messi and going for 400. See, like, I'd much rather take that over a 6 of this. I do think that this actually looks really good color-wise, but this is part of the team set. It's a 6. It's going to be really hard to stand out there. Monday Chromo has a narrative on its own and is sort of its own release where it stands out, at least to me, and I think sort of the market's agreeing to that. As of late, the Monday Chromo has really taken a step up over other things, and so, I think that makes sense. The Monday Chromo is also, not rare by any means. It's the most plentiful, but at the same time, just because it's the most plentiful doesn't mean, it's the least desired, right? 1992 Mia Hamm, PSA 9. We have a 61 Pele Heinerle, PSA 2 going for 408. Back looks decent, obviously, a few problem areas, but generally not a bad item there for Pele. Bronze 2017 Immaculate Messi, love the badge right there, going for 420. Row above that, we have a BGS 9.5 Ronaldo with a 9 corner, 10 centering, and then we have a 2017 Mbappe Select going for 468 and a 10. Then in this row, I found this row to be quite fun, just sort of a mixed bag here. The Pele Heinerle and a 2 going for near 500. Looked at this, the front looks really good, honestly. Great colors, great edges, great corners. Back is, a little messed up in terms of the corners. You can see in each corner there is a little bit of paper loss-ish. And, that's gonna do a number on the grade, obviously. Still looks really good, and 500 for, a PSA 2. Again, nothing crazy. That's about where they've been. 1965 Eusebio, this is a Francesa, and goes for what, 540, PSA pop 1 of 1, none higher, so, those early Eusebios always very tricky to nail down, so that does a good bit. Also, one that's very tricky to nail down is the 2001-2002 Yaya Toure. So PSA 9, when I saw this in the auction block, I actually sort of spit out some water. I just didn't expect it, I knew that his rookie sticker isn't all that easily attainable. I thought that was a really high price, but honestly, when we look back, it's not really that high of a price. This one does 552. The last 8 did 250, so I guess on the scaling in my mind, that's about where I'd put it. Especially when it's the highest grade. When we go back, there were high sales for, say, the highest relative sale, I guess, would be the 7 for 312 at one point. So relatively, you could say it's down from the PSA 7, but I still think 550 on a Yaya Toure is still pretty impressive because it's not quite, much of a name in the hobby at all. And, I don't hear anyone talking about it. I don't think I've seen that name in the hobby, Discords once. So to me, that's impressive. Above that, we have what is much more bland with the Messi rookie. So we have 2 8s from the white fake auto set, the facsimile auto on it. I think the card actually looks nice. A lot of people hate it, and I think why it gets so much sort of hate is just because it's so plentiful and in high grade, and I think that in and of itself sort of suppresses people's desire for it, but I do think aesthetically it looks really good. You get that classic action shot, you get the Lionel Messi sort of autograph at least across the front, and it adds that little bit to it. I think aesthetically it looks all right. I think if you didn't know anything about the hobby and sort of, all of the weird idiosyncrasies of it, then, you would like that card. But to most people, of course, it's probably the worst Messi rookie, and I would tend to agree. Next to it, we have an 8.5 of the green version. This is a Campione. I would know that because this is mine. I don't usually sell too much in the PWCC weeklies, but there was a couple items that I kind of wanted to sell, and there's some, collection things I want to do, and so I did end up selling this. Reason being, I have a BGS 9 Campio now. So at the time when I bought this, which was basically near the same price as this, that was the highest grade. Since then, I've gotten a better grade. I got the rare Can't Be O version, so I'm happy to go ahead and move it along. Felt like this was a decent time. Obviously, Messi's, doing Messi type things, and so I sort of knew what I could get for it. And even though it's BGS, I felt like the liquidity on it would be decent, and so I was happy to go ahead and get that out of there. Still like the card, but again, upgraded, so I think that's the right way to go about it. For above that, we have a Kevin De Bruyne Gold PSA 9 going for 600, so pretty decent price there for sure. Gold's doing quite the number as well at the moment. Generally, I would say gold's the most desired out of the set. Obviously, you could say reds as well, but people just kind of brush off reds because they're not really attainable. So golds really are the chase, I would say, at this point. Then we have the PSA 3 Swedish record Pele here going for 600. These have been having a pretty rough time, but they were pretty, pretty high at one point. I think Pele stuff in general held really high and is still holding pretty well, but there are certain pockets of Pele that I feel like I'm starting to see fall, and this is one of the pockets, and I think deservedly so. It's not a great Pele. I mean, the name on the front's messed up. You don't get Garrincha with him. You don't get the red border. I think in terms of if I wanted to buy a record, this is not the record I would want to buy, and I feel like other people probably see it the same way. But again, I do want to own one day, so not to, totally diminish it. Obviously, it's Pele, and I still think it's great. Next to it, 1954 AMBC Fenric Puskás. This is a PSA 4 Pop 1 of 7, 30% PWCC eye appeal. This is interesting because right above it, we have another PSA 4 that also, same pop, same everything, but no eye appeal, and it goes for the same price. So I thought this was really strange. And I think I agree. So basically, whenever you look at this one, I'll blow it up a little bit more so that my face is not in the way. But yeah, when we look at the front, basically, it's got a lot of color to it, which I don't know if it's supposed to have that much color, but it has a lot of color. And, a lot more at the bottom, this sort of staining type of action that's going on down there. Don't know what exactly it is, but there's a lot of brown down there. And continues on the back on some of the sides. You can sort of see it, but generally, PWCC liked it. They said it was good. When you look at the other one, tends to be a bit whiter and also doesn't really have any of the staining, I would say. So, I mean, for me, I guess the cut on the top is sort of slanted. You can see that, and I'm sure there's other things that are wrong with it. I mean, it's a 4, but this does the same price, which I thought was really interesting. And I like that. It shows that people, actually do their own research and don't just trust eye appeal stickers given by PWCC, which I think is good. Then next to that, we have a couple modern stickers that are pretty decent price points. We have a 2018 Gold Mbappe going for 616 a 10. I thought this was like crazy high. I was expecting them to be way higher. Actually, not a great sale. There was one for 780 prior in July, and there hasn't been one since, so not all that common. And we went down a little bit further. There was one for 620 in May, so I guess that's, about the same price. And when we go backwards, I mean, let's just go all the way back. So 800 in January. We'll just keep scrolling. There was a lot of sales going on last year, 700. So yeah, this is a type of sticker where maybe everyone wasn't thinking, let's invest in gold PSA 10s and World Cup stickers. I mean, the World Cup sticker narrative and the World Cup sticker hate got pretty hefty, so I'm guessing that probably scared a lot of people off, and this one tends to do pretty good. Recently graded, though, so that's always something to look out for. This Mo Salah next to it does 690, and that's actually also a pretty good price. So basically, here this says 690. Last one did 400 in June on best offer, so that is pretty nuts, I would say. But the one before that in May did do 600. So maybe someone just got one back and they're like, I just want some cash for it. I can tell Mo Salah's going down, whatever. They just took it. And the next one does 700 and right back you go. But even when we scroll back, again, 2022, PSA 10, 1200, obviously down a good bit, but we scroll back even further, 550 near the peak of the market, 400 near the peak of the market. I mean, that's not bad if you were buying Mo Salah peak of the market. Mo Salah PSA 10 rookie stickers peak of the market. You're almost double, which I don't think most people would have thought. I mean, Mo Salah, he had some good years, yes, but he's not really, massively hobby relevant. People do like him, and he has a collector base, but, it's just one of those things where that's pretty surprising, I would say. It does help that at one point he sort of had his boom in the hobby, and a lot of people focused on it, so he is down relative to that, but, net still up. Next row, we have a 2017 Mbappe Gold Lightning Strike out of 50 and a PSA 9 going for 800. There is a Lionel Messi BGS 95 going for 900 min gem, which is pretty crazy, I would say. Probably a PSA 9, more than likely. Next to that, we have a Kylian Mbappe silver in a 10 going for 930. Sort of, one of the cards you think of when you think back to the mania of the hobby. This was definitely sort of a poster boy for the soccer segment, as much as, maybe we wish that wasn't the case, but it is. 1963 Lampo Calcio. This is a Dino Zoff, somewhat recently graded. I did look at this, and yeah, there has not been any high-grade Dino Zoffs from this Lampo Calciatore set, going for, decent prices. So whenever we look back, there was a 3 that did 550. That was a miscut, and then there was a 3 before that went for 840. So relatively, a 6 feels like a mega deal. Now, this isn't the rarest of Zoff from what I can find. I mean, just looking through here, you can see that there's also a white border version of this. It's very hard to tell, but there is one in here sprinkled somewhere. And there's also a 1963 Imperia Calciatore. So I'm guessing those are going to demand, maybe more of the premium, and maybe people are waiting for that instead of going crazy on this. But this was a pretty decent price point. I mean, 1,000 for a Dino Zoff isn't bad, but relative to the 3s, of course, that we just saw, not great. That's always a risk, with the grading scarcity. You have to really know what's going to be grading scarce and what isn't, and at times that can be very hard to tell. Rest of the row, probably not much to talk about. I like talking about Pulisic, but yeah, his Chelsea days don't quite have fond memories. Of course, I do of like Champions League whatnots, but other than that, pretty sour taste in my mouth at the moment, so I don't care about that card. 2022 Gold David Beckham Auto out of 10 from the Masters of the Pitch set in Eminence, going for 1,000. Yeah, I mean, is what it is. Oliver Kahn, 1989 Panini Foosball in a PSA 10. Yeah, really, really, really good sticker. PSA 10, pop 1 of 1. Great goalie, obviously, doesn't really need to be said. And yeah, does a good price. 1,100 on that one. I did look that up just to confirm. It is the highest price Oliver Kahn to sale that Card Ladder has in it. So fun to see. I'll have a video out about that later this week, in terms of prices, right? This is a sneak peek. So say for Oliver Kahn, right? A lot of people think soccer peaked in 2021, 2022, because that's what charts tell us. You go look at the Prism World Cup, card graphs. They're all going to say, oh, market peaked here, market went down. Well, let's see. Oliver Kahn, highest price sales, when are they occurring? Well, we have one in 2023, one in 2022, one in 2023, one in 2019, one in 2022, and you're seeing a lot of 2022s in here, a lot of 2023s. Not many 2021s, not many 2020s. But people tell you that, the market's down massively. And of course, certain things are, and that's going to be the case. Maybe more investor type items didn't do as well, but collector items seem to be doing really well. Who would have thought? 1965 Pele Valida back. Calciatore goes for 1,200 in a BVG7. So getting into the top 15 here, we'll start with a Vinny 1 of 1 field level. Not too bad at all. Obviously, pretty decent price point, but 1 of 1 sort of have their own separate market. And so, even raw with the NBA Authentic, you can do something like that. Next to it, a Phil Foden Red Velocity PSA 10 going for near the same price. Pretty good showing over the weekend. Always good company when you can be next to a 71 BIS. This one in med grade on Beckett's scale. Looking at the front, actually looks pretty good. I'm sure the back's all beaten up. The top left corner there is almost chewed off, as you can see, but looks pretty good. I think the eye appeal on this one is pretty astounding, and $13.80 for that. I'd say congratulations to the buyer personally. Would love to shake their hand. I think that that's a good buy. I see PSA 1s and 2s go for probably near this price at times, and so that doesn't feel bad. Then in this row, we have the 1958 Pele. This is the Vava and Pele from the Edizioni Vav series. PSA 2 does 1,400, which when we look back at comps is not too crazy. In reality, so last PSA 4 went for 7,200. This goes for 1,400. Obviously, there's a big gap between 2 and 4 in soccer, especially vintage being stuck and unstuck, so that's going to play a role. But the last two did do 2,000 on best offer in April, so down a good bit from there. But something like this 3 for 2,200, I guess it seems like it's up comparatively to that, because a 3 for 2,200 and this going for 1,400, that's not too bad at all. So within the ballpark, and maybe something I'll keep an eye out for. I would love to get an unstuck one. Although with the back, sometimes very hard to tell. But here we have a 1994, a Ronaldo Deportivo. At this point, I've seen so many of these, I just know the price point they go for the most part. 5s typically near 1,000, so a 6 at 1,500 isn't anything crazy. It would appear light to me, But at the same time, that could just be individual sales and sort of the, discrepancy that happens between each one. There's always going to be some variance. 2019 Topps Chrome Refractor Holland. This felt like a decent sale. Whenever you look, it's a min gem, 9 centering, 9.5 on the others. I do feel like 9 centering is one that you might be able to get by PSA sometimes because, a 9 centering, I've seen plenty of off-center 10s, so it is very possible. Looking at the graph for the Holland here, down 30%, and generally, a ton of crazy, spikes and dips here. I don't know. These might be just huge arbitrage opportunities there if you're someone that wants to be in this space and maybe make some money off it. That looks like that's what's happening right there, but who knows? But yeah, PSA 9 not doing great on the base. So I look back at the last year, the PSA 10 refractor is down 22%. The PSA 9 is actually about steady. So generally would appear to be where you'd expect if you wanted to crack that. Odds are, you have a shot at a 10, a shot at a 9. If you get a 9, you're going to lose 500 plus grading fees. If you get a 10, you're going to make 1,500 minus grading fees. So, you could be plus, 1,300 or minus, 600 or something. All in all, decent risk reward if you're into that type of stuff. But are you getting a 9 centering by PSA? I do not know. Above that, we have a 1958 Aquarela Pele, a blue one in a PSA 2 going for $1,590. Next to a George Best PSA 4 going for $1,600. So, taking a look at George Best, this is not going to look good, but I think this is a good idea of what happened to vintage and sort of where we are now. So, we don't have any sales for a 4 before the boom. So we can see with the boom, when that happened, they were 4,000. They got as high as 10,000 for a couple sales there at the end of 2021, 2022. And then now they are much, much worse. And I don't think that's because now suddenly this is a bad item. I think that's because people got ahead of themselves in buying low and mid grades because they wanted it. They thought that they were never going to get it again. And it's just one of those FOMO scenarios, right? Reason I say that is because at the time when these were selling for 10K, there was a PSA 7 that sold for 30. And you might say, okay, well, that's the multiplier, right? PSA 7 does 30, PSA 4 does 10. Well, now I think the last PSA 7 might have did like 20 or something comparable, right? It's like down 30%, while the 4 is down, 75, no, actually 85%. Like it is down massively, right? And I think that's because, again, people sort of FOMO into it, maybe overreach on a lower grade, and then the lower grade sort of comes back to reality, and that can be, an upsetting reality. This was a card that back in the day, typically these sort of cigarette cards aren't incredibly hard to grade. So if you're buying a 4, you should know that that's probably, not going to be great in terms of the grading scale. Not to say it's terrible, but it's not going to be, highly sought after in that space. And I think that's what happened here. Also, you do have to, I guess, sort of account for it is an older shirt. So obviously that plays a factor. But yeah, 1620 there. Still a decent price. As much as George Best is a great of the game and the one true rookie, I really do think it's iconic in that sense. He is still George Best, where I don't see many people talking about him. I don't see, massive relevancy currently, which plays a role at the end of the day, as unjust as that may be. Then we have a blue treble Mbappe going for 1,700 in a 9. Very, very nice looking card there. We have a Pele Sticker Verlag PSA 9 going for 1,770. We saw the 3 earlier go for near 200. This Monday Chromo Messi does near 2,000 in a 9, which is also an earlier cert. This is one that, maybe I would think could be an 8. You can see noticeably on the front, it's off center, left to right, and maybe even top to bottom a little. And then on the back, just massively off center. So if there's anything else with that card that is wrong, you'd imagine it's an 8 now, but who knows? Next to that, we have a Titulares PSA 2 going for 1980 with the PWCC Eye Appeal sticker. When we look at the back here, back's not fully there, but it does look pretty good, I would say, generally, so not too shabby at all. And love the Titulares Pele's myself. 1980, not a bad price. We've seen those go for about there. Typically, they go for 1 to 3K in the lower grades. And then finally, we get into the top 3, and this week's top 3 is very weird. One, because I'm in here, and I'm not in the most proud, I guess, to be in here. So we'll start with mine, which is the Estampas here. So, taking you through it, basically, when I bought this, I bought it basically buying the slab instead of the card, right? I know that's cardinal sin. Everyone says buy the card, not the grade. I bought the slab, not the card, all right? Whatever. Now, the reason I did that is when you look here, it says SGC Pop 1 of 1, just 1 graded higher, which to me is just insane. To think that I could, attain a pop 1 of 1 higher Maradona rookie. Now, obviously, it's an SGC pop, so I'm sure in PSA pop, and I've looked before, it's like a top 10 item. But would it make it into PSA's pop? I don't know. See, now that's part of the question. SGC 3.5 here looks really, really short on the sides. I mean, there is not a lot of edge to it. I will say this is sort of a common thing. I mean, there was a BVG4 that sold a couple months ago, which is what propelled me to sell this. The BVG4 also looked trimmed and went for near 4,000. So I was like, well, I'll sell this. Personally, I mean, when you look at the left-hand side, yeah, I mean, the corners aren't perfect. The top has some stuff going on, but like, yeah, when you look at other copies, there's much more border. This one doesn't. The back looks clean, which is why it gets a 3.5. So the back's clean. The card in general is clean. But in terms of the aesthetics of it, I don't like how little border it has, which is always sort of iffy. I will say again, I see a lot more of these with little border in slabs than I see most any other Maradona rookie. I don't know why that is. But that's the case, at least from my experience. And notably for me, I mean, I just don't like the eye appeal of this. I recently bought a PSA 3 with some coloring on the arm. It's like colored in red right there, but it looks so crisp. I'll probably throw a picture up on the screen right now just to give you a sense. And so I bought that one, and once I had that one in hand, I was like, well, I don't need this anymore. So I listed it, I sold it, and I feel really good because now I can go out and buy whatever else, comes my way, I guess. I'm going to try to be patient. It's always hard, but I'll try to be patient with it and get something of note whenever the time comes. So we'll see. Here we have a 2016 Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo dual signed sticker. So this is one I've seen sell at least quite a few times. I'd imagine whoever had them both sign it got a lot of them, had them both sign a lot. I will say in general, I don't like seeing lots of these because the more of them I see, it feels like the more opportunity there are for fakes, because if there's so many of them, then you can kind of sneak other ones in. And so it really does scare me whenever I see, on-card items being paid this heavily, especially when you look at, I don't know if it's confirmed, but the Chinese, was it like Fansmall or whatever, that set, the way they do like the sticker autos, it looks exactly like everyone is consistent. It looks machine written, right? And so if you can have machine written autos and look pretty similar, I mean, that's very scary. And I think that's, a large part of the reason that people pay such a premium for, on-card signed items and, sticker autos even at that point. And so, yeah, I mean, sure, it's cool. I mean, would I ever spend 5,000 on this? There's no shot. You could buy a flawless one of, Ronaldo. You might be able to get like a flawless Soul of the Games Ronaldo for near this price, depending on what it goes for at times, or at least a good, on-card item. There's no way I'd ever want to go after this. But obviously someone did, and I do think inherently it is cool, but to me it could be ruined quite a bit. I mean, in reality, it's like a $10 sticker maybe at most, so it's nothing crazy. And then finally, I guess the elephant in the room does about the same price actually, which is the SGC 10 of the out of 50 Topps Chrome Gold Refractor Holland, going for 5,100. Not the Bundesliga one that everyone so covets, but this is the Champions League one. To me, doesn't look very good. This is where I start to wonder with Topps Chrome. Like, yeah, Topps Chrome 2017 looks good, and I think 2018 looked good too, but after that, I think Topps Chrome really drops off in terms of what it does for the eyes. Obviously, at this point, people sort of, covet Sapphire, and they start to switch, so that's, maybe playing a role as well. But yeah, 5,100 there. Still a good price for what is a modern out of 50 item, although SGC 10, still pretty good. Overall, pretty fun auction, I would say. There was a lot more higher end, at least like 500 and above than I've seen before. I mean, almost half the auction block was 500 and above, and some weeks we've struggled to see that. So that was a lot of fun, and hopefully you guys enjoyed as well. So that's going to be it for me today. If you guys did enjoy, of course, make sure to leave a like. Also, would love to hear your thoughts, again, down below in the comments. And if you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. Also, a few Discords down below if you want to check them out. Fun place to hang out, talk cards. And yeah, with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.